Welcome to DevJams. This is where we talk with developers who are doing interesting, innovative, inspiring things when it comes to images and videos inside of their projects, whether that's managing them in unique ways, delivering them in unique ways, basically pushing the boundaries of the way that media is being used inside of various types of projects, websites, mobile apps, software, and more. My name is Sam Brace, and I am the Senior Director of Customer Education and Community here at Cloudinary. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about a really cool thing. At the company, we have ways for our overall community to start developing libraries. So that way, that framework, that new programming language, whatever it happens to be, it's a great way for the community to be able to help us to extend the capabilities of Cloudinary into those frameworks, especially with those that are very familiar with those frameworks or languages as well. Today, we will be profiling two of those amazing libraries that have been developed by Matías and Jakub. Matías has been focused on developing a community-driven library for Svelte and Cloudinary. And then Jakub is going to be focusing on a community library that he has developed for Nuxt. So if you're ever so interested in developing a library that is associated with Cloudinary or frankly, any other type of companies, there's going to be a lot of insights on how that works. And also, if you're just interested in a lot of these JavaScript frameworks that have been mentioned, like Nuxt, like Svelte, there's also going to be a ton for you here in today's episode. Joining me with this episode for practically every single one of these is Jen Brisden. And Jen is a technical curriculum engineer here at Cloudinary, and I am always so happy to have here to be part of these conversations. So, Jen, welcome to the program.
Hey, happy to be here.
So tell me, why are you excited for Jakub and Matías to be joining us here today?
Yeah, this is a really cool episode because we have two different developers who haven't worked together to build something like when we had James and Amy on DevJams a few episodes ago, but they've worked to build similar but different frameworks that help developers build performance sites. So they're both JavaScript based. We're talking about the front end. There are a lot of similarities, but it's like a same but different situation. So I'm excited to compare and contrast Svelte, Nuxt, and everything that comes with them.
Absolutely. And I think you said it very well, is that there's going to be a lot of ways that you're going to see comparison, contrasting between the different libraries, frankly, the different types of frameworks that we're going to be focusing on. I think it's great to have these two awesome minds, frankly, on different parts of the earth to be able to come together and have a conversation about this unified topic. Great point here, Jen. Now, one thing to note here is that everything that we will be discussing when it comes to these community-driven libraries, you can access this inside of our documentation. So you'll see in our documentation, there is a section about all the SDKs that we support. Many of these, of course, are built by Cloudinary, but these community-developed and driven libraries that you can see, including the Nuxt and the Svelte ones that we're going to be profiling today, there are direct links to those that you can easily find within that space. Also, note that everything that we'll be talking about is available within these spaces. So the Svelte library that we will be covering is available at svelte.cloudinary.dev. And of course, Matías will be walking through all the ins and outs of how he built this and is maintaining this with community members. Also, the Nuxt library is available at cloudinary.nuxt.js.org. As you can see, all the links that we have that are on the SDK page, they all point directly to these landing pages about these libraries in this case. And before we finally move over to our guests, I have to, of course, mention that if this is your first time coming to a DevJams podcast, whether you're attending the live stream or listening to the recorded podcast itself, know that we have years of content available from our DevJams program, available at cloudinary.com/podcasts. And of course, that's where we're going to have links to all the supported podcasting services that we distribute to, such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and even our own trainings resource known as the Cloudinary. And for you to have further conversations about many of the things that we're going to be talking about today, know that we have a dedicated community, which is at community.cloudinary.com. And this is where you can have conversations in our forums, as well as our associated Discord server. And I will mention that Matías and Jakub are members of our Discord server as well. So if you want to have direct conversations with them, that will be an amazing place to further them in that case and reach out to them directly. with that said, let's go ahead and bring on our good friends, Jakub and Matías. Welcome to the Prepper. So we've talked a little bit about what you guys have done when, of course, you create these libraries that are able to be supported with Cloudinary, the community, the work that we're doing to be able to extend Cloudinary into the different frameworks. But that's just talking about the project itself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. So Jakub, Matías, feel free to jump in when you need to, but tell us a little bit about who you are.
Go ahead, Jakub.
Thanks. Yeah, so my name is Jakub. Don't bother trying to pronounce the last name. I'm usually saying it. It's Polish, so it's difficult to pronounce. If you like to find me, you can do it here. Yeah, here. With the Twitter link, it will be easier. Or X. It's X right now. This is a common joke right now on the conferences where you're just saying, this is my Twitter. Oh, I forgot it's X now. Yeah, so I work at Vue Storefront. And I'm a senior full stack developer, and I enjoy it really much because I can do everything from CSS to SQL to Terraform, cloud, stuff like that. So this is what I really enjoy, is that I can basically jump in any part of the project and I can help wherever it is needed. And apart from that, I'm also a Google developer expert in web performance, and I'm part of several communities, one of which we are here today, which is Cloudinary. So yeah, I think that's basically it. So passing my voice to Matías.
Yeah, thank you, Jakub. I'm Matías. I'm from Chile, so the other side of the world in both sense. And yeah, and I've been working as a software engineer for, I don't know, almost 20 years right now. And I started way before. But currently, I'm working as a full stack or software engineer at CleverTech, mostly focused on front end, but JavaScript, TypeScript is my thing. I'm a Cloudinary ambassador and part of other communities too. And obviously, you can find me on X Twitter as Matías FH. So yeah, I share their content or rants, whatever.
So I think this is a great chance for us to be able to explain a little bit about Svelte, a little bit about Nuxt, because we've mentioned these names at this point, and we may have had DevJams programs that have talked about these various frameworks, but definitely not to the level that we're going to be talking about today. So I think give us a little bit of understanding. What is Nuxt from a high level perspective? Same situation. What is Svelte from that same type of perspective?
So in terms of Nuxt, whenever I'm trying to explain it to someone, I usually say that if you are looking for a supercharged set of principles and patterns and goodies that you can use in a Vue.js world, you should take a look at Nuxt, because Nuxt under the hood is using Vue. So basically, if you are using Nuxt.js, you are using Vue as well. But apart from the fact that it's built on top of Vue, it also comes with several useful functionalities and features out of the box. Features such as hybrid rendering. So you can basically decide which parts of your application should be rendered, for example, statically or dynamically, or maybe they should be client side only or server side. You can basically decide it from very simple configuration in Nuxt configuration file, and things like SEO, things like modules. For one of the modules that I will be talking about today for Cloudinary. So Nuxt comes with like bunch of modules that you can use to extend the default functionality of Nuxt. It is using Vite, similar as Svelte. Right now from the Nuxt free version, Nuxt 2 was using Webpack, so it was much slower for developer experience. Right now it is using Vite, like blazingly fast. Yeah, so basically if you are looking for a Vue.js framework that will take some of the responsibility or some of the difficult aspects from you, Nuxt is a perfect place to go, because Nuxt core team created a lot of useful functionalities that you can easily use, and you don't have to take care of them. You can just focus on coding the business logic, which is the most interesting part, I would say.
No, that is interesting. And I think you did a good job of explaining when you would use Vue, when you would Nuxt, how they're basically very much tied together. Make tons of sense. So Matías, what about Svelte? Like, especially looking at the perspective of what Jakub just provided with details about Nuxt, what are maybe the similarities also between Svelte?
Very similar fashion. There are two things in the Svelte world. You have Svelte, that is the UI framework that allows developers to use simple JavaScript language to write reactive UIs. The big difference between Vue, Svelte, and Svelte against everything else is that the Svelte is actually a compiler. It's its own language. So when you write a Svelte components, you are writing a Svelte language that use JavaScript and hijack a few pieces of some of the not use JavaScript features to create simple bindings or simple ways to add reactivity to allow developers to easily reason about the components. But there is also SvelteKit. That is the counterpart of Nuxt or Next. So you have Svelte. Svelte is a Vue, as SvelteKit is a Nuxt. SvelteKit is the latest creation from the Svelte team that empowers developers to use Svelte as the UI framework, but also offers several primitives or several decisions about how to build an application, what is the architecture to do it, and includes routing, data loading, error handling, SSR, SSE, and SS, whatever you need to create more complex application than just an UI. And also all of the required adapters to be able to deploy to several places like Versal, Netlify, CloudFront Workers, or AWS directly. Very similar ideas and concepts. The big difference here is how them were applied to the different frameworks.
Got it. And it's starting to make a lot of sense. And so it's where it's not a direct comparison by any means, but there are lots of similarities. And I think that's great to be able to show when we're getting into the library side of things. And so,
in my opinion,
I'm sorry.
In my opinion, if you are new to both worlds, see Svelte or Vue or SvelteKit or Nuxt, there is no hard way to decide what is better than the other. It's more about the feeling that you have when you are building something with them. I encourage everyone that is new to this world to just try it out to build something with both and decide what feels better. Because at the end of the day, what is most important is not the DX, that both offer great DX, but about the product you build. So you need to enjoy the process, but build something. So yeah.
No, that actually makes tons of sense. And so when you're thinking about libraries and building something for these various frameworks, these various programs, languages that you're going to be working with, why did you decide to use Cloudinary and Nuxt together, Cloudinary and Svelte together? What was the need? What was the reasoning for this overall project?
So maybe I can start. So in my case, I was using Cloudinary quite a lot before. However, I was using in a bit different way, because back then, and when I say back then, 2 years ago, so it's not as long ago, but still, when we are building our new Vue storefront project, which is like an e-commerce template for modern e-commerce websites for composable commerce, and we were using Nuxt 2 there because back then it was like the stable version, so we decided to stick with it. And we are using a module which is like the official module from Nuxt core team, which is called Nuxt image. And this module is basically a supercharged like image native EMG tag from HTML, but it also comes with several automatic like optimizations out of the box. Something similar what you can achieve right now with Cloudinary, with with the module that I created, or I ported, because it was previously created by Maya Shavin. And what I did with it is I ported it to Nuxt 3 because it was created for Nuxt 2. And I also migrated it to use the Cloudinary URL loader, the package that Colby created, and which is also being used by Matías in his Svelte Cloudinary. So this is a great abstraction on top of Cloudinary so that you can use one SDK in several different frameworks in a very similar way. And the only difference is just the UI part, right? The view component or Svelte component or Next component. So back then, I was mainly using this Nuxt image, or in comparison, Nuxt Cloudinary, the old one. And then I looked at the fact that basically both of them weren't as maintained anymore because of the constant movement around Nuxt 3. And then I was contacted by Colby. So maybe we could join forces and try to migrate it into Nuxt 3 so that this module can be used again, because it was used quite widely when Nuxt 2 was like the main version of the framework. Yeah, this was my story with Cloudinary. And as I really enjoyed working with it before in my work and projects, I felt really good to just jump into the repository and try to migrate each part of it to support Nuxt 3, which is like the go-to version right now.
In my case, it's similar situation. I've been using Cloudinary for a long time. I don't even recall when, but I know for sure that was a long time. And the main way to use it was basically the URL gen SDK. So I was using it in the backend or in my Rails day with Rails. And then in the front end, it was basically pasting the URL. So I manually uploaded my asset to the media library, and then I just copy the URL and do the transformations that I need. That at that time was mostly cropping or scaling or a small transformation required. But with the new frameworks like Svelte and Nuxt and everything else, it's been easier to integrate third-party libraries into the different UIs. So I started to use that in my code, but still Svelte doesn't offer any other. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Svelte doesn't offer supercharged or powerful image component. Svelte is all about using the platform. So it's just the image tag. But doing the transformations manually, it was a burden at some point. And so I started to roll my own thing. And I was also contacted by Colby because I knew him from Edhead.io as an instructor and from the community. And we started to talk. And at some point, we decided to move forward with creating a Svelte Cloudinary library from scratch, but from scratch, quote unquote, because we use an awesome component named Unpick that handles all of the responsiveness and all of the kind of nitty gritty, create an SR set, picture, and all of the components for us. So Svelte Cloudinary is mostly wrapping the work from Unpick, the work from Colby, that also wrapped the work from Cloudinary to create some better DX. And then we just expose a simple way to use this component into Svelte. And also, I need to tell also that most of the API that we are using was created by Cloudinary by Colby for Next.js. We have in sync.
It makes sense. And I love this full circle that's happening here, because it's where we've had Maya on the program talking about some of the work JCB is doing. We've had Colby, obviously. We talk about Colby practically every episode. But it's also the same sense, like we had Matt Kane on recently, also talking about the Unpick project. Everything that we're talking about very nicely, we've also talked about in previous DevJams episodes. is excellent full circle about a lot of the things that we've been discussing about working with JavaScript-based frameworks, working with Cloudinary, working with CDNs, all of that combined. This is great. This is great. So Jakub, I think it would be great for us to start with you if we can. So do a walkthrough of the overall Nuxt library that you were able to build with Cloudinary, show how it all works together, and maybe talk around like the overall build, like what did you have to do when you were going through this process?
Sure. So yeah, you will be sharing the screen. Okay. So I will show you basically something similar to what Sam already showed you. So the documentation, but I also want to dive deeper into StackBlitz because I'm using it on a daily basis, and it's very easy to start with. You don't need an ID, you don't need anything. You just go to a URL and you will have it you will basically have it working. Starting with the documentation, if you have seen the Svelte Cloudinary or Nuxt Cloudinary, you will probably see some similarities. However, in this case, this theme is a bit different purely because it's like the theme that we are using in our Nuxt modules. So that is why if you go to, for example, Algolia module for Nuxt, you will see it in a very similar way. However, coming back to the topic, the installation of the module is relatively simple, and it's very similar to how you are using or installing or basically registering the modules, any other modules in Nuxt. You install it, then you add it to the modules array with the name of the module itself. You need to pass the Cloudinary cloud name, and that's it. You can right now start using the CLD image. It's very similar to Nuxt, very similar to Svelte. The only difference actually is just how you are using the components themselves. In here, you have the result of basically this component. So it's CLD image, and this CLD image will come with a set of props that you can use to basically make it look a bit different. So there are also options for the module itself, but right now it supports only cloud name. In the future, we'll probably add some more functionality here, some more configuration options, but for now it's mainly a cloud name. We have CLD image, and in here you have all props that are available. So general props, effect props, and obviously if you like to see those props in action, you can scroll below to the examples, and in here you will see all of them working, like each of them. So pixelate, grayscale, for example, tint, and many more. So we have the CLD OG image, which is not actually rendered because it's not an actual image. It's more like the meta image. So you will see it in the source code of this website if you add the CLD image like this. But you won't see it actually in the website because it's not like physical image. We have CLD. Yeah.
That one is a pretty good usage of Cloudinary in general. I think that it is the most used example around the web, how to create automatically Open Graph images. If you don't know what Open Graph images are, it's about this image that you can see when you share a link that is show up on Discord, Slack, Twitter, Facebook, Facebook, Twitter, etc. And it's all about branding. So you can use a template and then use the CLDOG image to handle all of the transformations. For example, adding some text, some title, or transformation to that template. And so it's pretty awesome. And it's pretty awesome that it works everywhere.
Yeah, I agree with that. And the nice thing also is that we have tons of episodes now about Open Graph. So if someone's saying like, Matías, you tickled my brain, where do I go? We got tons of DevJams content about Cloudinary and OG. But yes, we can't bang that drum enough. Open Graph is a great thing to be focused on when you are doing web delivery. So glad that Jakub, that you addressed that in your project.
Yeah, so as Matías mentioned, if you are or are not familiar with the OGs, With this component, you can just put it like this on your website, and it will handle all the logic of in your Nuxt application. So it will create a proper meta tags that will handle it for you. Going further, we have CLD upload widget and CLD upload button. So in case of those, how they work is that you can basically upload an image just like this to Cloudinary by using the component. And you have two options. You have signed and unsigned. Signed is obviously safer one, but it also requires you to have additional endpoint to basically handle the signature so that it is safely sent or uploaded to Cloudinary. In here, how it works is that you have the upload widget, and in a slot, so inside of this custom component, CLD upload widget, you can pass whatever you like. So in this case, I am putting here a button, but it can be a form. It can be basically whatever you like. If you want to have a button, you can also have CLD upload button here that basically does almost the same thing as here. So CLD upload widget with a button inside, but it's a separate component so that if you don't need or don't want to pass your button inside, you can just do it from here. And for the props, they work very similar for both button and the widgets. So you have all those available props below. And my favorite, which is the video player, which basically allows you to embed videos in your Nuxt application. So by having only those, like one line, but still one component and 3 attributes passed to it, you can just have a video playing on your Nuxt website. And you can also customize it in a way you want. So we can have it, for example, like this. So we can have different colors. And we also can react when the player is creating some events. So for example, when the video is paused or when the metadata is loaded. We have props, many of them. So I won't be talking about each of them. I just wanted to mention to you that they are available. So if you are looking for more customization options of each of those components, you can just check them here. One last thing from the documentation is the composable use CLD image URL. It is a pure composable in somehow related to React hooks. And basically they are just functions. So they are functions that encapsulate some kind of logic into a method or a function. And they can return something, or they can just do some magic, I would say. But in this case, this use CLD image URL, it is used to a wrapper around the Cloudinary util URL loader, the util or SDK that could be created so that both me and Matías can easily connect to Cloudinary and generate those responsive images, optimized and transformed images. So this composable is like the pure function, pure JS or TypeScript function that you can use. And actually, CLD image, the one right here, is using this use CLD image URL. So if you don't want this image, or you want to, for example, have this optimized, transformed / converted or changed image into something else, not like static EMG tag, you want to have it somewhere else, you can use this use CLD image URL and pass some options just like this. And you'll get the URL that you can just put into image, picture, or any other tag that you want. And you will have this optimized image. And for the props is exactly the same as CLD image. So all of them are available to you for you to basically modify the images the way you want.
Incredible.
There is also a GitHub repository, which is public. So it's Nuxt modules / Cloudinary. So if you'd like to maybe try it out, or you have some ideas around it, so maybe there's something missing, or maybe you would like the module to have some specific functionality, the issues tab is always open for you to create an issue. And if you are also open for contributions, that's even better. In here, there is a link to the playground, which basically redirects you to the StackBlitz, but I have it already opened here with download all the packages. So I will move right here. This task StackBlitz is really important for trying the module out, trying Cloudinary as well, and for debugging, for creating new features, especially for me. This is what you see here. The file structure here is basically the repository of Nuxt Cloudinary. So when you will open this link of StackBlitz, you will be here in the folder called .stackblitz. And in here, you have app.view component, which is like general page in Nuxt ecosystem, the global one. And in here, what is the script tag, which is like the logic of this component, this page. And in here, we have this usage of use CLD image URL. And we are in here just logging it out to the browser, and it should be here. So these are the links created by use CLD image URL. And if you like to see the source code of this image or this video or those upload buttons, maybe the CLD OG image or this magically looking transformed image, they are all available here. So each of them is marked with the comment. So you can easily check the source code of all of them and try it out in a matter of minutes. What's next?
I have a question for you because I love sandboxes. I love all of these different options here. So why did you actually choose StackBlitz? I know this is completely different than what we're talking about, but like Code Sandbox, JS Fiddle, they're all things. How did you end up choosing this particular platform?
So purely because this is the main platform that we are using in Nuxt for debugging. Okay. So for example, in Nuxt ecosystem, when we are like handling issues, so when community members are raising issues, we always send them a link, or there is always a link in the issue description for either StackBlitz or Code Sandbox. And usually StackBlitz is the one that community members will choose. So that is why we slowly moved towards StackBlitz. And to be honest, and this is my go-to in terms of showing code such as this one, of debugging stuff, of issue triaging, stuff like that, because it starts in a matter of seconds. And I would say that just the experience for me is the best. I know that Code Sandbox has many more templates, like ready templates that you can use. However, StackBlitz just works for me. This may be a personal preference.
I like the UI. I like the UI a lot. They might take offense to this. I don't know, but it has like a VS Code feel to it. So it feels very like at home when I'm looking at it. So I'm saying to myself, man, if I have to do a sandbox, I use this thing. It's pretty nice. Yeah. But I didn't mean to deviate, but it's just, I was intrigued.
Yeah. I believe it's quite awesome. And it looks like these sandboxes are part of each community. Vue community use StackBlitz. React community use Code Sandbox mostly, I think. And Svelte people mostly use the repo from the Svelte side. So it's way different. But at the end, all of them offer the same thing. And again, it's what you like, what you love. And yeah.
And then Matías, a great point, because it ties back the whole thing. Like, we're not saying like Nuxt is better than Svelte, or no, but they also, they have their own tools that they prefer in different cases. So I think that's a great thing that you're pointing out here, is that even though there's lots of sandbox choices, if the Nuxt community is typically using this, it makes sense, frankly, Jakub, why you chose to use a Code Sandbox that the Nuxt community is very tied to. Once again, great choice as a library creator to know your community well.
So just one last thing here, because I won't be like talking through each of the elements in here. I just wanted to point out that if you like to try it out, just go to StackBlitz/GitHub/modules, Nuxt-modules/Cloudinary, and you will have this like playground running in a matter of 2 minutes or so. And you can just try it out, and everything is configured for you. So you will have all the transformations ready, and you can just play around with it.
Wonderful. This is really, really good. And
Yeah.
what I like about a lot of the things that you've done here, Jakub, is you've taken a lot of the elements that Cloudinary provides, but with this library you have, it simplifies a lot of things where, as you said, for you to get a video player up, it's very simple to do. And all you're essentially doing is designating width and height as parameters, but then everything else just comes through. As we like to focus on a lot of these episodes, we want developers to be able to do things quickly, efficiently, and sometimes we joke around saying that makes you lazy, but actually that's a great thing because it means that you can easily repeat tasks. And this is something where if I need to put a video player on a page or put an image on a page, I don't have to put a ton of thought on how to go about doing it. Your documentation, your library, it makes it fairly simple to do for anybody that's using Nuxt, their framework. So this is fantastic, Jakub. Any final thoughts? Anything we're like, oh, shoot, I forgot to tell you about this before I jump over to Matías, because I would love to hear about the Svelte side of things, but I don't want to cut you off either.
No, just this. The last thing is what I mentioned about the StackBlitz. So passing my voice to Matías then.
Perfect. So Matías, the floor is yours. Tell us a little bit about Svelte.
Okay, so this, again, this is pretty similar. And let me change to the doc side. It's pretty similar. As you see, it's actually the same layout and in the same components. The main difference here is about how this is just used. So before jumping to how to install and all of that, I'm going to show you the difference on code. So this is an Svelte component and it's inside an SvelteKit application. In the case of a SvelteKit, you have this route and these names that the first time looks weird. This plus page that is built, but it's where the community move to name the root page of each route as plus page that is built, and it's just a Svelte component. And a Svelte component, it composes of three parts: the script with the logic, then plain old HTML that you can use components directly, like still the image was imported here, and then an optional style tag that is a scope to this component in particular. So everything here, this style here, only affect this UL element and not anything else. Okay. And if you can see, the API for the component is the same. It's just calling the CLD image and then just passing the correct or the required or the needed props like SRC, and then you have the result that is actually pretty simple. The turtle with a zoom pan, but that effect, doing that effect manually is hard. Doing that effect with just a prop is simple. Or this with overlays. That overlay there is just done with this part of the component where I can pass the SRC and then I can set what overlay I want. So this overlay already exists in my media library, and I just said where I want it and what is the gravity, and then if I want to pass some effect or not to that particular overlay. So this is two images, one on top of the other. If we go back to the usage here, so if you're new to Svelte, our preferred tool, our preferred package managers is PNPM, but you can use whatever you want. And it's actually the same as in the Nuxt Cloudinary library. You can use this for an Svelte page, because that is single page application, but the community already moved to always recommend use SvelteKit as the source for your development, even if you just want to create an SPA page or site. So just install the library and create an M file with your cloud name, and you're good to go. So
that's very similar to how Jakub's was, where that's basically all you need. It was cloud name, do a basic package install, and then you're off and running, which that's amazing. You made it so developer friendly.
Yeah. And the other part that is developer friendly is that, for example, one thing that most people had to do to create better consistency on their site, for example, in an e-commerce, is to remove the background of an image. And you can do that by just passing prop. So let's go to code. Let's go to the original image. Let's pass remove background. Let's go back to the example and let's wait. And let's hope this doesn't break now.
The live demo, I have
my the demo got. I think that I don't have this active. There you go.
Oh, there we go. Looks great.
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Just one line, and this worked obviously on Nuxt library too because we have the same API. And as was mentioned by Jakub, we have this underlying utility, the getCLD image URL, and the getCLD image URL. That is basically the same. That returns you all of the calculations required to build the Cloudinary URL. Because at the end of the day, all of what these components or this library does is wrapping the Cloudinary URL. That is, if we go back here and I just copy my image address, copy this here, you can, I'm not sure if you can read it, but I can read it out loud. It mentioned where is this? It's inside my cloud name, and it's marking the E background removal effect, then the crop, the size, the F auto to have automatically format with the best format possible supported by my browser, and the quality, and then the image. So if I go there, I can see my image directly on Cloudinary. So all of that is hard to write and read can be done directly with the components, with just simple props.
This is so cool. I'm just blown away by the work that you've done, Matías, as well as Jakub. But this is so helpful. Everything you guys have done.
The component with that, thank you for that. But the component that I like the most is the video player, and it's just because playing videos on the internet is hard. You need to think about streaming. You need to think about how this will be chunked. You need to think about how to change the rate of the video, if it will be 480p or more because of the network is different. You need to handle many things. But using this component that relies on Cloudinary tech, you had to just pass the SRC, the public ID, and do nothing else, and will be there. And if you want to customize this further, you can, as was shown by Jakub too, you can change the colors here, or you can perform some transformation like expanding or cropping the video. This is the same corgi as before, but this is zoom, right? And you can pass overlays like this thing that if you play there is a jellyfish from Colby because he had the idea. So this is paying tribute to him. That is overlaid on top of the video, and without thinking too much. So this is the whole idea of how these libraries works, like exposing powerful tech and powerful transformation in simple ways.
And you said it very well, that when we're looking at video deployment, Jakub's project, your project, both address that in really easy ways, where instead of having to say, oh, I've got to think about all of the things that you were mentioning about, like what codecs am I using? Is this going to come through on different players? Long form content, of course, being able to have things adaptive bitrate streaming is like all of that is things that are complications. And you've made this fairly easy to knock all of this out. And as you showed in both of your projects, that clicking the play button, played a video instantaneously. There's no like smoke and mirrors behind that. That just happened. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, that's really cool. And same as the Nuxt version of this, the SvelteKit version of this also have a GitHub repository that you can find in Cloudinary community/SvelteCloudinary. So PRs, comments, questions, issues are really welcome. And this is just to show you a little bit about the code, the big little difference between Vue or Nuxt code versus Svelte. Svelte is, as I mentioned before, is recommending everyone to build everything on top of SvelteKit. And even if you want to create a package, like a component package, you use SvelteKit for that. You just need to only store your components in a lib/component thing, and you're good to go because there is a script just to build the package. But building a component can be cumbersome sometimes because you need to handle many things. So this is what the developers will not have to do, because we offer the component, handle the types. That TypeScript can be annoying sometimes, even though it's really good and I recommend everyone to use it. But also you need to handle the reactivity and many other little options. And this is exactly the same as the OG image that Jakub chose, but here I show you how Svelte does it. There is a component named SvelteKit, and everything that is under the SvelteKit will be dynamically injected into your application, so you have better SEO. In this case, what I'm injecting is the OG images to show them on every site. And this is another difference between Vue and Svelte. This is part of the Svelte templating languages. You are using this thing to control the flow of your template in this case. Yeah.
I think the thing that I'm noticing, because of the commonalities that are there between the project that you've developed, Matías, as well as the one that Jakub built, is that these are all things that I think we're also saying you should care about as someone that's developing on the web or developing an app. You should be thinking about Open Graph. You should be thinking about video delivery. You should be thinking about these things. And the fact that you're addressing those in the project, it's underlying saying, yeah, we made this easy for you. And yes, we're addressing this. But it's also where I think these are just big topics. These are big trends when that, as developers, you're helping people to wrap their heads around. So this is fantastic to see the commonality between the two projects there.
Yeah, I mentioned the OG image before, and I will reiterate that because everyone should pay attention to this, but it's annoying to do because you need to do all of these meta things. And to be honest, I always forget what property names are used for the OG images because there are many. And having all of this already done for you is quite easy, because at the end of the day, this thing is not your project. It's not your product. This is a kind of a byproduct or side effect of required to build your product, right? So you need this because social media is important and you need to share the things and showcase them in social media. But why you had to manually do it? No, I don't think so. You need to use some package. In this case, Nuxt Cloudinary, Svelte Cloudinary, and Next Cloudinary offer this out of the box. Way easier.
I love it. And frankly, it's one of those things where, of course, Open Graph is not new. It has been around for a while. Like I've worked for Cloudinary for 5 years. And in my previous job, I was teaching people about Open Graph there, and I was there for a while. So it's not like this is, 2023, you got to worry about this new thing. But what I love about that, we're saying is that this thing that's been around that Facebook developed a long time ago, or Meta, whatever we want to call it, is to say, this is still very important. And the fact that we're making it super sustainable. I wish it had come at developers were developing tools that made it as easy what you guys are doing many moons ago. So this is great work. Great work. So one thing I do have a question about, and this is both for Jakub and for Matías, for both of you, because now that we've seen walkthroughs of these projects here, what I would love to get more detail about is if someone is saying, okay, I want to start using Nuxt in my next project, or I want to start using Svelte in my next project. And this has almost been an inspiration for them to get into those different details. Where do people get started? I can see, Matías, you're leading me down the path. You're showing me details of the SvelteKit. But so maybe let's start with you. Like, is getting to know SvelteKit and getting the best way for someone to start becoming a Svelte developer or using it in a project, or is there another path?
Yeah, I think that Svelte is a really good first framework for everyone that is starting, because it's really simple. There is not too much. You can go to svelte.dev and read the doc or go directly to the tutorial. Tutorial is really good because you have this documentation and the examples are the right side. And I think this is a really good first framework. This is my opinion, obviously, because it's just enhanced HTML. So if you are learning HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, this is a easier way because you don't need to actually learn too much about different languages. There is no JSX, there is no hooks, or I'm not throwing shade on React. It's just as an example. I work in a big React code base every day, so it's not that. But I love Svelte because of simplicity. But if you already know how to build applications and you want to jump to another framework, I think you need to go to kit.svelte.dev, because this is where intermediate developers with a bigger knowledge can just look around and see what can be done, and just poke around. Okay, this is what I need to load the data, without even actually reading, because you already know what you don't know and what you need. And a kind of a shameless plug, I have a few articles about learning SvelteKit on Edhead. There is a series here, and I'm recording a tutorial about a course about learning SvelteKit, so where you can dive deeper into each of the concepts.
Well, I'll do a shout out, not just for your course, but also just for Egghead courses in general, is that we found that when we're talking about third parties, people that are not Cloudinary, talking about Cloudinary, I found that Egghead is probably one of the few sources out there that always gets it right, where we're teaching the right techniques, the best practices. So it's to say that, yeah, go check out Matías, your course, but it's also where if you find any Egghead course that mentions Cloudinary, I pretty much am going to say stamp of approval on a lot of the ways that they're introducing some of the concepts around image, video management, and delivery that would be inside those projects. Great learning area for sure. And one thing that I loved, back up what you were saying, I saw it in the tutorial that you had here, is there was like a note that they said, you need to know basic HTML, CSS, and JavaScript to be able to work with Svelte. Back to your point, most developers have some of that, whether it's HTML or CSS or JavaScript. So I think it furthers your point that if you have this general foundational knowledge of web development, you could probably use Svelte, and it makes it a very nice stepping stone.
Yeah. The thing that the community has agreed, as I mentioned before, is to use SvelteKit for everything. And SvelteKit is bigger, and there are many other concepts. But if you are just getting started, you want to get things out of the browser on the window, right? And SvelteKit is just really simple. You just can follow this tutorial and learn.svelte.dev, and you will learn Svelte on the road, because there is not too much on Svelte to learn. It is not that complex. There are not functions to handle state. I will argue that you don't even think about external libraries to handle the state, and state handling is probably the most complex or difficult situation for UIs. So if you don't have to do that, there is not too much to learn. It's just enjoy. Obviously, opinionated, because I enjoy working with Svelte. But yeah, I completely recommend working with it if you are a beginner. And if you are advanced, there are a bunch of things to learn here. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. So Jakub, similar concept and similar question. If I'm saying, I love what you showed, I want to get into Nuxt, where should people be going for things like that?
So the main source that I'm always using is obviously the Nuxt.com, which is basically the documentation for all the patterns or the ideas for the modules as well. So if you go to docs, you will see get started, guides, API as well. You also have examples. So each of the major concepts are explained in both Code Sandbox and StackBlitz. So you can have some sort of like interactive playground examples. I mentioned modules, which is the list of the available modules that you can use. For example, we can search for Cloudinary, but it's not listed here. It's probably listed under V2. So this needs to be updated. However, it is there, so you can check it out as well. And there's also notes about community stuff, third party, and all of that. So apart from those, if you are looking for courses, there is a really great course by Michael Thiessen. It's called Mastering Nuxt Free. And it basically covers like full stack web development with Nuxt. So you will cover topics such as Supabase, Prisma, GraphQL, PostgreSQL and stuff like that. So if you're looking into more like a course, this is definitely a good place to go. Also, if you also a bit of a plug, I also have a blog, but in Dev2, not in Egghead. And I also write a lot about Nuxt, but I don't write articles about like the basic concepts. I focus more on the areas that are not yet there in the documentation. For example, if you're looking for solutions for, I don't know, improving performance of your Nuxt application, I have a checklist and several articles of solutions and tools that you can utilize to make the performance of your Nuxt application better. As well as I also have some series about building e-commerce websites with Nuxt. So you can check both of them as well. Yeah, and apart from that, I think those are the main ones. There are also some YouTube channels, but I don't watch YouTube tutorials anymore. I focus mainly on the documentation. This is the issue that I had at the very beginning when I was learning, that I was focusing only on the YouTube channels and YouTube tutorials. And then I figured out that you can actually learn much more from the documentation itself. So yeah, I always recommend the documentation first.
I love it. This was amazing walkthroughs. And of course, it's a great chance for people to be able to learn more about Jakub, Matías, but also the projects you're working on. Lots of amazing outside resources. I think we did a really good job here, guys. I'm pretty impressed by the work you did. Matías, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I had to do a shout out to just two things. First is this Joy of Code. Is a creator that have a lot of material about SvelteKit and other topics. Shout out to them. Also, Coding Cat that also have a pretty good course about SvelteKit. But the thing I wanted to say the most is I really love how Nuxt community is really cohesive and it feels like they have everything put together. And I really love it. I really like that. I'm not a Nuxt developer. I know just a little bit of Vue on my own, but I really love how the community exposed themselves out to the world. It feels cohesive. I think that is the word. So shout out to that.
I love it. I love it. Like this, like reach you across the aisle type of feeling. We're like, yeah, you're doing great work too. Good job, Matías. Good job. I like that when we give each other shout outs here. So I think we did it. So what we're going to do is we'll say bye to you for this episode, but of course it's not where this is the end, because you're going to be doing great work with Svelte, with great work with Nuxt. You're doing all this great. Jakub, you're doing all sorts of stuff with web performance in general. So it's where hopefully you guys can have you back for future episodes and tell us about more of the latest and greatest stuff that Matías and Jakub are working on separately, maybe even collectively. We never know, but keep us updated. Hopefully this is not the last time we have you on the episode.
Yeah, hopefully. And thank you for having me. That was a great episode.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was really great.
Thank you for coming.
So, Jen, I want to find out from you, what's your big takeaway here? There's a lot of things that Jakub and Matías just threw at us, and I'm still amazed, frankly, even though I knew about these libraries ahead of time. There's still things that I learned through their walkthroughs today. But what's your big takeaway here?
First of all, I'm glad that video came up, because it's just nice to see how easy it is to use video and how it all comes together. But I think really, as far as I see, it's the differences between the two things we were talking about today really lies within the syntax. There really are a lot of similarities. And I loved something that Matías said earlier in the episode. It's really about the feeling you have when you're using these different technologies. That's not something that a lot of developers say. They won't talk about a feeling you have, but really when there are similarities, there are things to consider, like, what do you like? Do you like this or do you like that? And some people just try one and they stick with it. But we were talking about sandboxes. We were talking about Replit and Sandbox.io. And I have more experience with both of those, but I think you and I were both really attracted to the UI of StackBlitz. And that's one that I think you and I have had a little less experience working with. And now we're like, oh, maybe we would working with that. And that's just something that I noticed as unique to this episode, as when you're talking about similar things, it really could just come down to a feeling. So that was a big takeaway for me. How about you, Sam?
I think the biggest thing that I took away from this is just, I love the fact that the community developed these libraries, but the community continues to support these libraries. Like when I saw that contributions and usage was being done by some of the people we've had on these episodes and others that are associated with it, it's where when Jakub wants to add something to this, it doesn't have to be Jakub that does it or Matías that does it. It's where opening these up as open source libraries that the community can be able to bring their things into, it makes sure that they're able to build it the way it needs to be done. And I love seeing these open source aspects of many of the projects we profile here on our overall DevJams program. Once again, if you have a feeling about what this should be or you want to contribute to it, everybody that we're showing here, Jakub and Matías, they're very open to that. And that makes me excited. A couple things to note for our audience here. As we mentioned at the very beginning, but in case you popped in the middle, it's important to note that all the SDKs that we have at Cloudinary, including these community developed libraries, the one for Nuxt, the one for Svelte that we have profiled, they're going to be available inside of our documentation. So simply go to cloudinary.com/documentation, go to the SDK section, and you'll see all of the libraries that we support, as well as the ones that the community has developed that we also support, such as Nuxt, Svelte, Next, Netlify, Laravel, and more. On top of all of this, make sure to go and check out the various libraries that were developed by Matías at svelte.cloudinary.dev and the Nuxt library that Jakub went and developed at cloudinary.nuxt.js.org. And remember, we have many other podcasts. If you're like, oh, I want to keep learning, I want to keep hearing from inspiring developers that are doing interesting things with their projects, you can always go to cloudinary.com/podcasts, or frankly, wherever you are listening and watching podcasts, whether that's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or even our training resource, the Cloudinary Academy. And lastly, but extremely important, if you want to keep these conversations going, even though Matías and Jakub basically are everywhere on the web, as we learned in this episode, make sure you also are having conversations about the things you've learned about using these libraries and anything that's associated with them inside of our community at community.cloudinary.com, and also our friendly and very popular Discord server. Lots of ways to keep this conversation going and to be participating. So, Jen, any final thoughts before we let the audience go?
Yeah, I hope that anyone who came here because they follow Matías or Jakub, or they're coming from the Svelte world or the Nuxt world, both frameworks can help developers build performance sites. We know that, but this episode really made me realize how easy it would be to go from one to the other if you're especially maybe an intermediate developer who's comfortable working with multiple frameworks. Maybe check out the other one. Maybe this episode would inspire you to check out the one you're less familiar with at this point.
I love it. And that's a great call to action. Absolutely. Go explore and check things out. So on behalf of everybody at Cloudinary, myself, Jen, as well as our guests, our contributors and authors of these amazing community-driven libraries, thank you so much for being a part of this overall episode. And we can't wait to see what is coming next from developers like you who are developing inspiring, interesting, innovative projects using Cloudinary. Take care, and we'll see you at the next one.